That's the fish tank, boys. The fish tank. I'm close to the fish tank.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to BJ on Game Day. Back again for another week. As always, you're joined by Bogan. How are we, brother? All right, Bogan's mic's not on, but he's well, guys. And a special treat for everyone tonight. I think it's been well overdue. We've had him on once before in a bit of a draft cameo, but ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Big Ted is with us tonight. Big Ted, mate, across the ditch, how are we?
Oh, mate, humbled by the intro, mate, humbled. Yeah, no, doing well. Just keen as to talk a bit of Supercoach, mate.
Beautiful, mate, beautiful. And we'll jump into some fullbacks and some back rowers tonight, mate. So some of the juicy ones. Look, no Josh King at this point in time, so it looks like it'll be, the Hampo and Ted show with Bogan in the
Good
background
evening,
there.
everyone. I got my mic on finally. No Josh King. I have texted him to say that this does count as him missing a show. So,
all right, good.
We'll have to go back and watch the replay to see, because he's claiming it's regular season only, but I'm calling bullshit on that.
Yeah, no, let's all hang him out to dry. But yeah, welcome on, Ted. Looking forward to it tonight, mate. As I said, we'll jump into the back rowers and the fullbacks first off. But good to have you, mate, and very much looking forward to it. Do you have a preference where we start tonight, Big Ted? You want to start with the fullbacks?
Well,
start with the meatheads.
Well, let's start with the second rowers, mate. Now look. Firstly, shout out to everyone listening. I can see you all in the chat. Benny, Shane.
Benny and Shane. That's everyone that matters.
G'day, boys. Yeah, no, Roger, right. Everyone with the spanners there. Yeah. So look, well, the elephant in the room, you've got to start with him, and I think that at 7.45, Fifi is probably appropriately priced. Just hope he gets more minutes and doesn't come off the bench. But I think if you're going to start with anyone, I think starting with him, building your team around him, that'd be where I'd go, Hampo. So, straight up, I think Fifi is a must-have.
Mate, it's interesting, right? Because I think the first couple drafts, and good evening, everyone in the chat, as you said, good call there. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everyone back, and looking forward to it. Mate, I agree. I think the first couple drafts I did in my team, I didn't have him in there because I just thought 750-odd K, it's too much. But, we all know what he's capable of. His ceiling is scary. As someone, that won't own him, if you don't own him, you've got to be prepared that he can, have a 2-try or 3-try performance and be on 12 and then next minute be on 130. I guess the only issue with him will be, like you said, that minute share. He sort of finished the year very quietly, whether he was injured or not. He would have averaged under 60 minutes for the back end of the year from sort of round 16 onwards, just looking at this, Ted. So it'll be interesting to see those team lists. You obviously got FEMA there as well. Whether they end up moving Kevy Proctor out of that back row onto the bench or into lock, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, if he's named to start at back row, Ted, I'm all for it, mate. And I totally agree with you. You've got to have him, mate. If he's named to come off the bench, what would you do? If he gets named round one team list in that one of those 4 bench spots, what would you do?
Well, he's coming off the bench for me as a starting first picked because it's like this. Even when the wheels fall off the wagon up there at the Titans, which is pretty regular, and having Sexton as your halfback, anything's a possibility this year. But I can remember him running around last year like a pack of headless spuds, right? Didn't know what to do. What do? Get a penalty, tap it, chuck it to Fafita. He goes over, ragdolls a few Newcastle boys out of the way and says, that's how you score meat, boys. So even off the bench, he's just like a deadly weapon. You've got to have this guy, full stop. If you're not starting with him, you got bigger balls than me, mate. Bigger balls than me.
No, look, good summary. I like it, and all for it. Next on, who's on your list next, Victor? Who's one of your top back rows that you're looking at this year?
Well, look, I've broken it down into my own tiers, and shout out to all of the other podcasters, shout out to the 1% boys, just a shout out to everyone, Kando and ADOS and like the Supercoach Hub boys. There's a lot of talk there, and they've broken it down into tiers. So we're not going over anything new, but like there is the top tier guys. So I reckon cutting it down short, you've got Fifi, Maddo, TPJ, Gus, Curran, Cam Murray, and I think underneath that, I'm going to have to rule a line for my tier 2 players. So, like, any one of those, Fifi, Maddo, TPJ, Gussie and Curran's got some upside. Murray also, he's got the most upside out of everyone because he's Captain Murray now. I don't know where to start talking about them, but they're the guys which I'd have in my top tier. The only concern I've got about any of these players, Maddo's glass head, you know, a little bit fragile. We all know he's got that history. Like, he's a point-scoring machine, but one bump in the head, and, mate, he might be out for weeks on end. And then I could fall into the same trap and go, no, Maddo's going to be back, so I won't get IPAPs. So I did that last year, and my season just went from shit to shit because I got onto IPAPs in about round 7 rather than round 3. So that concerns me about Maddo, and I don't have IPAP in my top tier.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, another question for you. It's pretty noted that, you know, you got to try and get Cleary in your side if he's going to be there round 1. There's a lot of discussion around whether you should or shouldn't start with Turbo. You also got a couple other expensive guys around the place in, you know, Harry Grant. How many? I'm going to say a gun back row is someone that's probably priced at sort of 550 plus. How many gun back rowers do you reckon you'll start the season with in your side?
One.
Will it be
one?
Just the one, and then you're going to find some mid ranges in those other 2 spots on the.
Well, I'm going all about strategy this year, Hampo, and Bogan's going about strategy too, because you can stack it with like Maddo, Gussie, Curran, put in Murray, but if you're going to be putting blokes like Grant on the bench because he's going to be there round 2 or 3 or however long it takes. Yep. I'm also being smart because I think a smart super coach would put Munster on the bench, probably bring Hastings or a cheaper 5'8" in, because come round 2, even though Munster had a shit year last year, averaging 75, I think I don't want to waste the trade bringing him in. So I'm going to risk having about $1 million plus sitting on the pine to start with, having Munster, having Harry on the bench, and then going from there. And just while I'm just like diverging off on a tangent here, right, talking hookers just quickly, even though it's the second row fullback pod, right?
You're right.
Those blokes that are going to start, right, bringing this Newcastle spud in who's unproven, right, just because he's Randall and he's cheap and everyone's going, oh, he's got to be the cheapie which you got to have Grant on the bench. Well, like, no, give yourself a hit, because with Grant on the bench, you can't rely on just the unproven. So I think that you've got to spend a little bit more money there and maybe go in with a 2-hooker strategy. But then with a 2-hooker strategy, spending all that money, how do you put Turbo in your team? Well, I'm not. So anyway, back to you, mate, now that I've been rambling on. But that's a bit of my thoughts on the hooker situation.
No, that's good, mate. I like it. Look, I'm starting with probably 3 what I would consider gun back rowers at the moment. I've got Fafita, Curran and Maddo all penciled in there at the moment. That might change yet, but now that's what's in there. But in that current draft, I don't have Cleary and I don't have Grant. So if I need to free up some cash, there's definitely probably going to be one of them that drops out. Look, I think Maddo does present a bit of value. You're right with the head issues that he got, but head issues that, you know, he's had in the past and we're all pretty well aware of. I just think he finished the back end of last year pretty slow, and then missed the last few games to finish the year. I think he's a little bit underpriced. Dare I say underpriced, but I think at 580 odd K he presents a bit of value. You got IPAP moving on, so I'd imagine, you know, it's not like he should be losing too many minutes. Hopefully he's playing 80 again. So I do like Maddo at 570K despite the issues we've got with the head issues. And I also do really like Curran. Again, I just think the only issue I have with the Warriors, Teddy, is there's just so many mouths to feed in that pack, and once Tohu's fit, I know Curran probably should play on the edge, but you just don't know. And Nathan Brown, as we've sort of seen in the past, being Newcastle fans, could do anything, but he seemed to favour Curran. Definitely the finish the back end of last year, and Curran's gameplay is very conducive to good Supercoach scoring. He likes to, hold the ball and can cross for the tries and runs those tough lines, and also does get through a bit of work. So I do like a couple of those guys. Can you talk to me a little bit more about Cameron Murray in particular, and possibly Angus Crichton? Teddy, you got some thoughts on those two? I know you mentioned Mother a little bit earlier, but I'm keen to hear what you got thought on those two.
I've certainly got more thoughts on Gus and on Murray. Now, firstly, I'll start with Gus. Mate, I've got man love for him. He is just the man. Every time he plays, I love him, mate. Someone who's going to sacrifice a finger for the game. You've got to love that kind of attitude, right? Okay, but Gussie comes in rocking him at 653, you're paying for what you get, right? Haven't done too much looking into that pack because it is absolutely stacked. But if I could just get onto that pack, you've got Tupanua there just sniffing around. I also think what's really going to affect him too, Gussie, is that he's got two really good halfbacks and 5'8" running off of him. So he's almost a must-have, but I can't put him in my team because I can't pay $653 for anyone else apart from Fifi, because at the Roosters there's a lot of mouths to feed. So definitely not going Gussie, but I couldn't fault anyone for putting them in their starting team. Now, getting on to Cam Murray, right? This guy here, he has just got it all in front of him now. He absolutely owns this team, right? He's one that you could put a sneaky VC on almost every week if there's a fullback which is injured, because he's going to be getting 80, Brent. He's really going to be banging out those minutes. Name someone with a quicker play the ball. No one. He's also going to be running it with mate Cookie, who's under orders now to run it a little bit more. But, mate, ultimately, I think it's going to be Captain Murray's team, and he's one that I'm really tempted at taking too. Also, spinning off of that, the young halfback which they've got there now, Ilias, going to be running the show, right? Now, I think he's ultimately got to be one of the best cheapies to ever come into the game. Face it, he's going to be there. He's going to have guys like Jai Arrow, which should give an arm for the club. He's going to have Cam Murray. He's going to have all of these, centres like Campbell Graham, and then getting onto the fullbacks. I don't want to jump too far down, but getting on to Trill. Name me a better system for a young halfback to come into, which is just going to absolutely take it by the scruff of the neck and go, this is my team, and go, Aren who? And, mate, they're going to go, this is the new era. So everything's looking on the up and up for Souths this year. Hate to say it because I don't like the bunnies, but definitely it's all going to be Cam Murray. Don't know if I could waffle on any more, Brent, but that's about my feelings, exactly how I think.
Look, it's interesting. I think you're right. He's definitely got some weapons running off him, young Ilias. But, back to Murray. I know Ilias is it's tough as well. It's hard to know which one will end up getting that 7 ongoing. I think it'll be Ilias, but also I guess Taft's had a bit more experience, NRL experience.
Look, Tass has put his hand up and said, look, I'm not first grade ready. Put me back and play me Reggies or do me something, but do not put me out there because I'll underperform. I think he's more targeted playing fullback this year, Brent.
There you go. So, well, and if that's the case, Ilias will be one of the highest owned cheapies for sure. Totally agree. I guess back to Murray, it'll be whether he can see a few more minutes, Ted. I mean, he's traditionally only played 70 max. He'll
be 80. He'll be 80. He will not come off.
That extra 10 minutes will be very relevant. He was pretty
yeah.
solid last year. He only had a couple tons. The ceiling isn't really there for him. He did top score of 117 last year, but he's very consistent. He's very, very consistent. As you said, he gets that captain's armband, possibly gets a few extra minutes, and I can see why people are pretty keen on him. And he does get some attacking stats in there. So I like it. And on Gus, I think, as you said, I just wanted to mention, he still managed to average 75 points last year in a side that did miss Keary. And at times they did look like they really missed him quite a lot. The attack wasn't there. It's obviously quite noted with Tedesco, same sort of thing. So I think it's quite amazing. Angus only actually turned up once last season. 119 was his top score, but he was very consistent. And that's sort of, you're probably going to expect at least that out of him, plus a few extra attacking stats with Keary back out there, and Tedesco probably unlocked a bit as well. So, yeah, sounds good, mate. I like it. Can you tell me, who are you looking at for a bit of value in the back row this year? Have you got your eyes on any mid-ranges or anything like that at the moment, or you think some guys worth a shout?
Well, look,
Sounds like we've got the King. Might be the King might be on by the sounds of that.
King dialing in.
King is attempting to dial in. I'll just bring him up.
I can hear him.
I can hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Where are we,
further
boys?
ado, the King.
I actually had every intention of turning up tonight.
Where are we live from, King?
Pacific Pines Tavern.
Right, so
on the Gold Coast.
local up on the Goldie, Pacific Pines, get down there and you can enjoy the show live.
Who's this bloke?
We got Big Ted on, mate.
Hey, Joshy?
Big Ted, I'm absolutely honoured to see your beautiful face.
Where's your fucking picture?
I don't know where my picture is.
Put your fucking camera on, you cunt.
It's a pleasure to have you on, mate.
The camera
Love
was
the
on, mate, but
commitment,
you
Josh.
just because you're holding
these boys
holding your phone like a teenage your phone like a teenage girl.
Oi, there we
Alright,
go.
let me try and fuck.
We're here. We won't be here long, boys. I've got about 3%.
Logan's going to have to work on
Yeah,
the fly
I'm
here.
trying.
King, we're talking back rows, mate. What are you thinking in the back row? Give us a shout for the back row, a bit of value or something. Give us something. We talked about the premiums. What's the sneaky? It's a shout.
Mate, right now, my back row consists of 4 what I see as keepers, 2 which are guaranteed. One's obviously for feeder, and I've managed to fit Angus Crichton in there as well. I think you got to have him.
We just touched on Gus. He was an interesting chat. You're going to start with him,
mate. I think Keary coming back into that side. Gus he's just a great player, mate. Like I think this guy's got a potential to be the best if he steps up again. Like I know he's great already, and he's good, but I think this kid for the next fucking 8 or 10 years can turn into one of the best second rowers that the game's seen. I really do. So, yeah, so for Feeder and Gus, mate, they go without saying. And, mate, I've got Hudson Young in there, anticipating that he plays 80. I think that post came out from a few lads that he was going to play 80. And I've got Joshy Curran on the bench. So I have spent a bit of coin in the second row. I just think all 4 of these blokes have got attacking potential in the second row. And, yeah, so that's what I'm looking at, lads.
Good stuff.
Nice
Now,
one,
Big
Josh.
Ted, we were crossing over to you, mate, to find a bit of value in the back row. Who you got your eyes on in that mid sort of area this
Well,
season?
look, in the mid area, I'm really much more tempted by guys like you and Aitken at 486. I'm playing him in my second row rather than down in the centres. I think there's a lot of value there. I'm also taking a fly on Jack Bird. I do like the strategy this year, boys, of a lot of DPP players, especially with the COVID around. I think it gives me more options than if I just limit myself to strictly second rowers. So, like this year, I'm like stacking it with guys like Isaac Tago, which is, I think, probably going to be the standout buy of the year, probably make the most money out of him and the young South's halfback. But, you know, definitely like guys like Bird, Aitken. And I think one of the biggest traps this year could be Bo Firma. or he could be one of the breakout guys. But any of the second row centre options have usually been pretty good value. So I'm going to have a little dabble there, boys.
Lads, can I just say, Teddy, long-time follower, you're our number one, mate. You are. All these lads, mate, you are number one. I never imagined this is what Teddy fucking
He's
Woods
not.
looked
He's
like.
not live, mate.
The people
I'm not
can't
live.
see him.
No, you can't see me. You can only see the bear.
It might be. You might be.
Well, they can't see you, but
You might be able to see him in the reflection of your glasses there, Joshy. But
yeah, probably.
Got a fucking head for radio, King.
Mate, I tell you what, with that cap on, you fucking definitely do.
Well, I wanted to wear my Kansas City hat, but that ain't gonna happen, mate. So we're not talking NFL.
Not
second rowers and fullbacks tonight, mate.
Mate, I'll talk a bit of NFL with you anytime, champion.
fucking separate
Lads,
shit.
yeah, look, I know a lot of people are talking about Aiken.
Yep.
And just 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, I can't remember which season it was, but I talked about you and Aiken when he was at the Dragons in the centres, and I thought it was a good year for him. I think, obviously, second row is a different story, but I think he's a little bit trappish. There's something about it that I know he's going to throw in an 80 or a 90 here and there and score a try or two. We saw it late in the season last year, but I think there's a risk there with him. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think. Oh no, look, I can see where your concerns are there, Joshy, for sure. But like, honestly, the only risk I think is that Tohu comes back quicker than round 7 or 8 or round 12, so you don't really get to see him shine. But at the moment, I think he's well worth taking a stab at.
Hang on. So if Tohu comes back, well, let's say he comes back as expected in around round 8, right?
Yep.
Who drops out? Curran or Aiken?
Well, this is the thing, I reckon. I don't know if he shifts into lock, Joshy, and then that, those middles just really tighten up. And this is the issue with you looking at guys like Penne. You got AFB, you got Lodge, you got Jazz in there. You'll have this Penne. So
and Bailey
it's hard.
Sirenen's sniffing for a good 80 minutes too.
Exactly.
He's got game. He's got game. Absolutely.
So
this is what we look at, right? Is the Warriors from the last couple of years have always had a really good forward pack, and Tohu, until he was gone last year, was really the only one who became Supercoach relevant, right? I just think if you look at starting with Aiken at 480K, what benefit can he be to the team? Like, I don't think he makes a load of cash. I don't think he hits 600 or 650. Like, I think he's a risk to start with. I think that there's better players there at 50K more or even 50K less that you can probably get a little bit more game out of.
I guess the issue, King, is I've got him as well, and I've got him in the centre wing, and their first 5 weeks of footy, St. George, Titans, Tigers, Brisbane, Cowboys. So they have a really nice draw. Again, if you're picking him at the centre wing where I am, I don't know if you get any better value than that if he is starting on the edge. But, yeah, it'll be interesting. I've sort of personally gone him, Kingy, and haven't really thought too much more about it because I think he's sort of got to be there. And we've got a new
yeah, look, hey boys, I think I'd much rather start you and Aiken as my second row centre wing rather than that Spud Peachy doing like bloody crab runs, going backwards and forwards and running around like his head bloody cut off. Or I think Aiken comes from a better system than that. So I'm all in on him, mate. I'm all in on him.
I like him, boys. Another guy I'm keen to chat about who's an interesting price, and I guess he might be a little bit hard to start with because of that. But I'm expecting him to bounce back. He had a really good 2020 and then was plagued by injury last season. But Paddy Carrigan, and King, I know you're a fan of Paddy. Yeah. You reckon he bounces back in 2022 and sees enough minutes to be relevant? He's only about mid-400s, maybe a little bit under.
Yeah, mate. I think what we see out of Paddy Carrigan is a bloke who's going to be the consistent player. I think he can turn into a probably consistent 650K player. really all comes down to what the Broncos do, mate. Like, they've signed well. I think there's a lot of positives. I'll be honest, mate, I'm not a Kevy Walters fan. I'm not. But, mate, forwards just know what job they got to do. So, yeah, look, it's probably not one a lot of people are looking at with Paddy Carrigan, but I think a sneaky pod. And you know what you're going to get out of him, which is that sort of captaincy kind of performance. And, he could find himself just that 600K flat week in, week out by scoring 65s and 70s.
I think that's the only problem with him, King. He doesn't have that ceiling. In the modern day Supercoach especially, you need those guys with the ceiling. You're not going to get a 125 or 140 out of Carrigan. You're going to get a 70, 80 pretty consistently, and that's about it. But if you're looking for a cheaper guy who could produce those premium meat and potatoes numbers, I think he's a guy that could do it, but I'll wait and see.
Can I just chip in there too, boys? You've got to remember that Paddy Carrots is coming back from a Achilles injury, so he missed a big chunk of last season. So, maybe they're going to try and lock him in for an 80-minute number 13 roll up there. But there's a lot of competition in the second row up there too, and I think there might be even some better value than mate Paddy Carrigan with some younger guys like Pai Kura as soon as he's back round 2. I also like the other 2 second rowers up there. So, I think there's a lot of competition. But anyone running, sniffing off of Payne Haas, picking up his scraps, has got to have a good Supercoach outlook this year, though.
Does Paddy Carrigan move into the front row?
He's 109 kilos, so he's big enough.
Yeah.
He could. The more I think about it, the more I think it's probably a shit shout just because of that. But we'll see. A couple other guys that have been mentioned, or we talked about him in the front row show, was Jai Arrow. So there's plenty of people looking at Jai Arrow. He's about 450 odd K. He does have the duel between the front row and the second row, and looks like he'll get the sewer starting edge spot. So keep an eye on him. Another guy I think could be a bit of a smoky could be Schuster. Obviously, Schuster.
I don't know whether I pulled a season too early on Arrow. Like I raved about him last year, like pre-season. I think he was 424, and I know Sewer sort of had that starting spot, but he probably never really showed what he needed to. It's the most action I've had in a long time.
Talking about rugby league, gets me going.
Oh, Jesus, there we go.
Oh, got it, yeah. Is that the crazy corner?
He's just going to be a solid player, but 500K, I think, is his limit. I think what we saw at the Titans is not going to happen at the Bunnies.
Telling the boys she was going with Benji Marshall.
And the only other guy I want to get your opinion on, boys, is Josh Schuster. So he's 530K. We think he probably gets the starting edge again at Manly. Has either of you boys looked at Josh Schuster at all, whether that's at second row or at 5'8"?
Mate, I reckon last year was his year. Like, the dollars that he was, he was a player that we had to pick up last year to make cash. This year, I don't think so much.
Yeah, look, I quite like him too, but I think that that the other big second rower, Ola Kalau too, I think he's one there, which I think at 512, I think he offers just similar value. He's a bigger body. Schuster might go good if there's some trouble and they drop him into the 5'8" position, but I think he's a little bit just in that too high and, for like value, and he's just at an ugly price. So I think I'm going to avoid him.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I agree.
Moving on to a couple of our sleepers. I don't know if they're sleepers more than value. I guess you get these two probably mixed up. Liam Martin for Penrith boys, 430 odd K, I think it is, and might have that Capewell edge spot. Whether he plays 60 minutes, whether he plays 80, there could be a bit of value there with Liam Martin. Do we think?
Yeah, he's one I don't mind. I know people started talking about him, and then plenty of blokes came out with stats saying that he's probably one that won't sort of show that potential. Yeah. He's got that sort of Josh Jackson, Dallas Aiken kind of feel to him, you know you're not going to get massive attacking stats out of him. He's not a natural footballer. He's just a hard-working footballer. But at 430K, if you can get him at the right time where you make maybe 120 or 140 out of him and then just offload him, I think that's probably what I'd be looking at for him.
I mean, I think he does that a little bit more in Attack King. I think he runs those lines. If he's off Cleary, I think, there's some value to be had at 430K. But, I have seen some of the stuff you've seen about people doubting his value. Another guy, very similar price, and funnily enough, the bloke Liam Martin's effectively filled. Kurt Capewell at the Broncos for 430K, boys. He's only second row forward now. He's no centre winger duality in 2022. But do we see any value at Kurt Capewell at Brisbane in 2022 at 430K at all?
Teddy, what do you think?
I think you're paying unders for him, but I've always been a hater, so like I really can't go there, but he probably offers better value than Paddy Carrigan. I personally would rather go with, mate, Ricky. I think Ricky's the standout one there. Have you seen the rig on Jordan Ricky anyway, mate? He's a freak. Yeah. So that's where I'm going to put my money as a mid-range of a bit of value there.
Capewell has always been that kind of player that was on the list. Like he was just that victim of versatility. Yeah, when he found his sort of position in the second row, he's performed all right. But no, I'm staying away, lads. I think he's a risk if anyone starts with him. He's going to find that game where he scores a try or two and throws in a 120. But I think there's better ways to spend 450K.
Yeah, hey, boys, I think he's a bit of fool's gold, and now that he doesn't have the DPP, put him in the bin, mate. Move on.
Bin him.
Bin him, gone.
Happy with it. Now, we've talked probably a little bit already about FEMA. We've probably talked already a bit about Cotter previously when we covered the hookers and FEMA and the centre wingers. But another guy who seems to have attracted a bit of attention lately as a result of some stuff that's coming out of the Cowboys fold is this Helium Lukey. Now, apparently he's going to be starting on the edge for the Cowboys at 351K. There's a number of blokes in the Turbo Sammy's Cup that are sort of juicing him up a bit. I did a bit of a look at him last year at his stats. It wasn't overly convincing. I mean, he didn't get much opportunity till the back end of the year, but I mean, if he's not getting at least 60 minutes, I can't see how he's relevant. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, he does have some attacking stats in him. He's a big, strong ball runner. He hits those holes well. But if he's not getting at least 55 at least, I don't know how he's relevant. I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing. Have you guys thought about him at all and had a look?
A little bit contradictory here, mate. But I'm a fan of Ruben Cotter and sort of what he can provide purely because he's got that dual position between second row and hooker. Can you confidently pick any Cowboys player based on last year to score well enough for Supercoach to be relevant? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks there for me.
I mean, he's only at 7% ownership currently, but yeah, as I said, he's getting a bit of airtime of late. So, Ted, you got any thoughts on Lukey?
Yeah, no, look, I do. Certainly, and hey, a shout out to the Supercoach Whisperer and Brew. They were certainly all over Helium. I quite like him. Now, getting back to what the coach was talking about there the other day, but personally, wouldn't trust that coach as far as I could bloody throw him, mate, because he's so all over the place. Who bloody knows what they're thinking up there, right? But, mate, seriously, right, Lukey, Nanai, and I think Nanai coming in at 343, he's offering just as much value, but they're also talking Ben Condon. But what the coach is calling them all, they're going, the kids this year, the kids this year, the kids this year. So it'll just be interesting to see how he does rotate. But, like, if the rumour is now that Jason Tamalolo is going to be going up and banging them up out of the front row, might offer a lot of opportunity there because, face it, they've only got Cohen Hesson, he's a bloody nobody, and, a couple of other bloody nobodies there. So maybe those three kids from the Cowboys offer some pretty good value. And if you had them as maybe your first, second and third reserves on the bench, I reckon there could be just some cash to be generated up at the Cowboys. But apart from that, I'm not going near them.
Yeah, I don't see it personally. I'm happy to be proven wrong unless Helium comes out or one of these young fellas comes out and starts getting 80 minutes. I don't see it, but happy to be proven wrong. It looks like we lost the King, so I'd imagine the phone's dead. Bogan, you could probably switch the Teddy back over onto the King. It looks like he's well and truly gone, but good to have the King while he was here.
Good to have you, Joshy. Commitment, mate. Commitment. That's commitment for the year.
Big Ted. I know you mentioned what was his name again? He's a cheapie. Piakura might get a run.
Yeah, well, look, this is where the value really is, and I think that the astute Supercoach would understand this, right? Last year, he came on in the last 6 games of last year. Like, if I got in the DeLorean and I went back and checked out his stats, I'd be standing on the sidelines going, look at this young raging bull going. Got himself in a little bit of trouble with the judiciary, so he's going to sit out round 1. But, mate, he's one there coming in, I think he's about 188,000. That'll fill my number 6 bench spot. But, mate, I'm liking him more than anyone up there, bar from Payne Haas.
He's got big raps on him, and we did see in his debut he took someone's head off within the first couple of minutes he was out there. It might not even have been a couple of minutes, but yeah, got eyes on him. Nass is back now, so I don't know if Moroa holds the value we thought he would maybe a couple of weeks ago. Same with Jack Holbarth. Like, they've got some young blokes they're going to have to blood this year simply on the fact that they're losing so much experience at the end of the year with the Bromwich boys. They've already lost Finucane. Kafusi will go. But unfortunately, there's no world I see where Bellamy throws him in for enough minutes to be relevant unless there's some significant injuries or something like that. But I don't know, mate. That's probably about it for me. No, considering we still got the fullbacks to go over, do you have anyone else you want to shout out in the back row that you're looking at that we haven't touched on, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, look. Just let me just clean up a few loose ends then, right? I think left field there. You've got the Bullymore kid. He's left the Broncos with his dual position. 280's a little ugly, but maybe he's worth putting in somewhere as a cover because of the corona. Also, that Isaac Tago, DPP, second row centre. If you haven't got him, you're not playing the game. Just elite, mate. Just elite. I think everyone's on board with that. So, no. Look, there's always going to be blokes which we don't cover, but let's get into the fullbacks, mate, because this is where it's all at.
All right, buddy. Let's do it. Good stuff. Good wrap there on the back rows. Now, this position obviously doesn't need much introduction if you're familiar with Supercoach, but if you're not, definitely the most important position on the Supercoach field. This is where all the points are, those ceilings, and there's nowhere else we can start but then with Tommy Turbo. I guess the question on everyone's lips is, do you start with him? Do you not? He's currently at 10% ownership at this point in time, Teddy. He's we've got a month out until the season starts. 10% ownership. He's a bit of a pot at 10%. What are you thinking? At 1.25 million, he takes up the best part of 10% of your cap or something like that?
More. Okay.
More than 10%.
Okay. What am I thinking? Seriously, I'm thinking that if you start with him, you've got bigger balls than me at 1.256. That's just too much out of my cap. I'm hoping that his hammy, and I don't wish injuries on anyone except Tom Turbo, right? But I hope he tweaks a hammy. I hope he drops about 400,000, and you can pick him up for a $600,000 or $700,000 if he has a couple of bad runs. Apart from that, I can see the merit to starting him, but geez, you got to be brave to start with him. That's just too much chunk of your cheese for me to start with, mate.
Buddy, all I would say is to anyone that's thinking he's not worth the money, and I currently don't have him in. I don't have him. I just think it's a bit of money there. You can get it maybe some better value for money elsewhere, but go and have a look at his stats last year. I know people don't think the game will be as open and there might be a correction to scoring. He might reduce a little bit, but I think he played 15 or 16 games, and of those he turned up 10 or 11 times. Go have a look at his 2020 where he only played a handful of games before he got injured. and his scores weren't bad in early 2020 either. So the more that I see that number of 10% ownership, the more I'm interested in him. But it's a big price, and I think it's one of the biggest issues or contentious areas this year. Or do you or don't you? Which part of the population are you going to be in? Are you going to be the ones that don't have him, or are you going to be the ones that do? And that's the biggest thing. So,
well,
yeah, I know I don't like the fact of not having him in my side. It's a scary thought.
Well, mate, I've got no fear not having him, and it's like this, right? If he does go bananas round one and just kill it and do everything that he can, well, I'm just going to rip me team apart to get him in, right? But I just can't do it, mate. And I think that those 10% of people starting with him, well, there's a sucker born every minute, mate.
And the other thing to add on to that, Tedo, is they do start with Manly. They do start with the Chooks, their first 2 games. But I just think this bloke's, I don't know. Who isn't a fan of watching Tommy? I think he goes back-to-back Dally M's. I just think he is cut from a different cloth and plays a different game to everyone at the moment.
Yeah, no, well, mate, what I'm really hoping happens, mate, is that he goes down to the Corso, he gets on the chopper again, he finds that bloke who he was on YouTube racing last year, and old mate goes, hey, I've even got a spare set of sneakers for you, Tommy, let's go, and boom, he has another shower incident, mate. He's just gone laid low for a few weeks. That's what I'm hoping happens, Brent, but no, I'm not starting with him.
No, fair call. Now, this is probably where it gets a bit more interesting. There's a couple of guys that stand out, and probably guys that, most people are going if you're not going Tommy Turbo. Generally speaking, it'll be Tedesco and Pappenhausen. Pappy's at 47% ownership currently, a month out from the season starting. James Tedesco, 37%. So they're very, very highly owned. There's a lot of people invested in Tedesco having a bounce back year. Obviously with Kiri back, but there's also been some news late that he's actually missed the majority of the preseason because of an injury issue he's got. And then obviously with Pat, we all know what happened last year. He had some head issues and then came back and copped a big shot from Ravalawa. So, as much as you question, if you're going to question Matto in the same way, Big Ted, are you thinking about Pappy in the same way? And who do you have as your starting fullbacks currently, if you don't mind asking?
Well, mate, okay, look, just get your bucket, you're going to vomit at my fullbacks, right? But seriously...
You don't have either of them?
Nah, look, I've got Pappy, I've got Pappy. But see, the difference with Pappy is that he's faster than Maddo. And, mate, Maddo puts his head into the ruck, right? And Pappy's, looking to score and finish. So, I think you've got to start with Pappenhausen. But, mate, the way which I've structured my team just to fit in all of my elite guns, and just as a left field pod, I've gone King Gutho, mate, because, okay, King Gutho's first couple of games aren't real flash, starts with the Gold Coast, starts with the Sharks. So, I think Gutho's going to go all right there. So, and then he follows up with the Storms, Drags, back again to the Gold Coast, and then Tigers. I think that's a juicy combination for me to start with. Plenty of be shaking their head going, oh, Big Ted, what do you know about Supercoaching, mate? You know nothing, starting with those blokes. But I'm telling you, that Gutho might only be a hold because the next bloke, which I'm going to talk about, that's going to be Trill. Trill's found himself in a bit of trouble, of course he always does, but I'm bringing him in as soon as he's in. So Gutho just might be that holding spot for Trill for me. How do you think about that, mate?
Look, I'm not going to bag you about Gutho. I think he is a bit 655k. I look at Teddy's draw in particular, playing Newcastle in round one, even though he's missed a bit of time. But there's probably a captain option in round one up against the Knights. But then they do play Manly and then South the next 2 games after that. So that's interesting. Look, Gutho, I understand it, mate. A lot of people sleep on Gutho and he doesn't get the raps he probably deserves. He can score and can score well. I guess the other thing to consider with Gutho, Ted, he's obviously not going to goal kick with Moses there, but Sivo generally will finish a lot of Gutho's stuff off, and I think Sivo's going to miss a little bit, at least the start of the season. I'm not 100% sure actually where Sivo's at, but I don't know if there's going to be the finishes out there for him. Like, how often do we see him throw that cut-up ball to Sivo and he runs over someone and scores a try? That's all his try assists and his line break assists are all because of what Sivo's doing, generally speaking. So I don't know if it matters. Maybe they put someone else on that wing that can do a job. But, if Parramatta perform well, it was all pretty much around Gutho, and he's an effort guy. He's in everything. And that's what
He's
you want.
into everything.
You want that in your players. You don't want to be like, where is he? I can't see him on the field. Gutho pops up everywhere. He wants the ball in his hands, and that's what you want. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, you know it, mate. Like an analogy. He's like one of those like whack-a-mole things that just pop up, and there's little Gutho King pop up over here, a little King pop over here. Sort of how our Josh sort of pops up, a little King here and little pop-up King over there. Like a whack-a-mole. Yeah. We should have one of those things to whack him on the head when he pops up next time.
And mate, I like your shout of Latrell. I'm a massive fan of Latrell. He averaged 82 last year. He'll probably end up with a goal kicking once he gets back, I'd imagine. Ilias can goal kick, so Ilias might kick the first couple of weeks possibly, and then it'll be interesting to see if Latrell gets it. But you add some goal kicking to Latrell, and it's just crazy to think what this guy could be capable of if he's got his head switched on.
Mate, can I just butt in here, bro? I've just got to butt in because if there's one man in the game that I have more man love than Maddo for, it is Trell, mate. He just does everything, and he does it extra bloody good too. And this is the thing, he's only 24. He's only just starting to fill out. I can remember like Inglis was a skinny, dangly thing, and Trell's going the same way too. But on his day, I pay $1,000 to go and watch Trell play. He's just the best. I love Trell.
Mate, I am a fan, and when the going gets tough and something needs to happen, they throw the ball to him and he makes it happen. Same thing with Origin. When something needs to be done with the ball, throw him the ball, and generally he makes something happen around him. So, yeah, big fan of Latrell. He will miss the first – I think he's not back till round 3 with some of that Joseph Manu carryover. So, a bit of an issue starting with him, obviously. Another bloke who's probably similar that I'd love to start with him, but I can't, and he's also going to miss round 1. Is he not? No, he's not going to miss round 1. I'm just trying to see. He's got a red thing against his name. I'm a big fan of him. Reece Walsh, Ted. I think this kid's unreal. A lot of it would be probably based around whether he goal kicks or not as well, but I think with SJ getting there, he's got another preseason under his belt. What he was able to do at times last year was quite phenomenal, but you probably will have those scores in him that you might have a 20 or a 30 just because of the kind of player he is. He's not a base sort of fullback. He's not a big kid. He's not going to run it up 30 times a game. But his ability to find space, his footwork, how he reads the game and what he sees in front of him, his eyes up footy's, amazing. And I just love to watch him. So I think he's a smoky at 550K. A lot of people looking at these big guys like Tedesco and Pappy and Tommy, but I think he could offer some value, especially if he goal kicks.
Look, all of the above. You tick box, do you? And that's Reece Walsh. But here's a few things I don't like about him, right? He's a sook. Reece Walsh is a sook. He's going, now that the Warriors might have to go back to New Zealand, I'm not that keen to play for that franchise. So his heart just isn't quite there. So he's not going to be there for the first few games, right? I'm just not in on Reece Walsh. I'm really not, I can see why everyone's suckered in by him because he did shine, right? But if his heart's not there, that's been the problem with the Warriors since day one, mate, is that it's always been this culture where their heart's just not quite there. And if he's a Brisbane boy, which he is, keen to either play up at Brisbane next year, or if Ponga doesn't get to go to the Dolphins, it's going to be all Reece Walsh. So I'm not really that keen. Do like Rocco Berry though, mate. Just a little shout out there. Rocco Berry, keep an eye on him this year, boys.
All right, Rocco Berry is a cheapie there. Okay, what position are we playing in that Warriors side?
Rocco Berry's going to be playing centre, but mate, I've got a sneaky suspicion that he is a DPP. I'm not too sure on that, but maybe he is, that's one to come on. Yeah, no, definitely is, boys, at 322. He's one which you could stash into your set of wings if you had some balls or some Warriors love.
Yeah, look, and I think it's just such an important position. If you're going to run I don't know. It's a bit hard to run a cheapie in that second fullback spot. Maybe if you got Turbo as the only other way, you'd probably justify it. But I think it's too important a position to run anyone else there. But if you can pick him up in the centre wings, keep an eye on him. Now, this will be one a little bit closer to your heart, Ted, and he's probably at 7% ownership. Pretty decent pod. Kalen Ponga. What are your thoughts on KP this year? What do you think? What's the go with him at Newcastle? What's happening?
Here's me thoughts on Kalen Ponga. Love to have a round of golf with him, though. Love to have a round of golf with Kalen. Or do some backflips off the porch into the pool. Yeah, me and Kalen would do that. We'd look good together. My thoughts on Kalen Ponga. I think that his heart's not at Newcastle. I think that the shine's gone there. The luster's gone. They're rudderless. I'm almost vomiting in my mouth to say that we're going to miss Mitchell Pearce, but Newcastle offer nothing, and Ponga's looking for 2023 somewhere north of the border. So just buyer beware. I think the astute coach would go, no, thank you. I'm not going to touch Kalen Ponga this year unless he shines.
I think I agree. I've not been impressed with what he's produced the last couple of years. But the thing with him with Supercoach is he has that ceiling, so he can produce a big score. He can pump out a 150 or a 160. But we're gonna have someone like Randall at hooker and possibly Mann rotating in or something like that. You've got probably Clune and probably Clifford in the halves, I'd imagine. Like you said, we've lost Pearce, we've lost Brayley, and we struggled with the forward pack that we had to get any go forward or any good field position last year. I don't know what's going to change this year. I personally haven't looked at him, but I can understand why people are looking at him as a pod in that fullback position because he has the ceiling, but I don't know. We start with the Roosters, Tigers, Panthers. You'll find out a lot about him in those first 3 games, but it's a big ask to start with him with that sort of draw at 600k, so I'm not anywhere near him.
Mate, I used to love him, but the love's just not there anymore. Move on from him. Put him down the dunny, flush him.
And as Lamming said, obviously no goal kicking since Clifford's arrived, so he loses a bit of relevance there. Teddy, a couple other blokes. Look, it's hard to start with them again. They're very similar to Reece Walsh. They're an awkward price. They're not established guns or superstars. But if you're looking at some cheap alternatives, you got Jaden Campbell there at 500k, who he's locked in that fullback spot. He's very exciting. He's very much like Walsh, I guess. Did average 63 last season, so at 500k, you might, if you're looking for something sneaky, he's only at 3%, but you're probably going to get those sub 20, sub 30 games out of him at times. But I think, if you're looking for something a bit different, Jaden Campbell offers a bit of value.
There's always got to be the bottom place fillers in the Supercoach ladder, and I think if you're starting with Campbell, that you're setting yourself up to fail. I think that the only one which I'd start with there, and you've got to get back, and you're starting with Fafita, and then you'll just look at the rest of them and maybe jump on board later.
Yep. Just having a look here as well. You're probably gonna have someone like where is he? What's his name from the Dragons? You got Terrell Sloan.
Oh, Sloan at 447, yeah, and starting. Interesting price, 447, Josh. Oh, sorry, Brent. Interesting.
It is, and like I said, he's locked in that fullback spot. They obviously let Duffy go. They've obviously seen a bit in this kid. I don't know if he's going to be similar to a Campbell. We probably haven't seen enough from him just yet. Just have a quick look at what his base was sort of looking like last year. He doesn't have the base in him at all.
Oh, it was all attacking last year because he was only there for the last 6 games, I think, mate.
Yeah, so the base though in that sample that you did get to see was not really there at all. So you're going to be relying on some attacking stats. That said, you can pick him at centre wing. So
at centre wing, mate, that's the dual position beauty about him, mate. And that's what the astute coach will be doing, is that he'll be looking for value money in your second row centre wing / fullback positions too, because there's some juicy options there too. But one which I'm going to skip straight to though, and I think people might call me crazy, maybe a less astute coach than what I think I am, right? But maybe what about this? A licensed to roam Joey Manu at 539k, fullback second row, centre, and just licensed to roam now, sniffing round off of Angus, running round behind Teddy. Do you think he's just going to pick up try after try and just get meat and then junk meat and just be like the standout player that you should have started with? Maybe he's a dark horse, mate.
He could be. I think the issue is he's priced at it's 540k. I don't think you can't pick someone like that in one of your fullback spots. Obviously, you got to look at him in that centre wing because I just think you have to go one of these other guns at fullback. Personally, this is my personal view. I then also think about that chook side and how does that whole roaming thing work? When you're going to have structures with Kiri and Tedesco and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure how it works, but I'm a massive Joey Manu fan and have been for a long time. Before he debuted, I watched a bit of it. I watched him at the 2016 Grand Final. Went and watched Cronulla play the Storm, and he played in the might have been the 20s Grand Final before it. And he had a blinder, and massive fan of Joey Manu. Would love to see him get the fullback spot somewhere, like where we were talking about.
Origin, he's almost got it wrapped up for Origin. Plus, I don't know whether you saw the news earlier today, but he's been stood down and denied access to play in the Megastar game. So he's got a point to prove, mate. Point to prove. So he's going to be a pumped-up license to roam come round one, mate. Could be a dark horse there to get on in your centres, I reckon.
I like him. I like it as a pod. He's currently he's at 11%, so he's almost out of that pod range in a way, Ted, as a lot of people thinking similar to you. Well, at least 11% of people. But, yeah, I think he's a beast. And with the guys with the weapons back, he could be definitely a strike weapon. And it'll be interesting to see that roaming.
Going to be a weapon.
I don't know. That's probably it from me, Ted. Is there anyone else look,
there's a couple more which I could just quickly brush over, right?
Yep.
Tessie New at 511, right? I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. Being DPP, fullback and centre's good. Also Cobbo, you could easily put him into your fullback role maybe later on this season. Maybe he's a good one to start in the centres, but having DPP, he's not really too bad. I think the really brave coach would start with Xavier Savage and hope that Cockstrap has an injury and that he gets brought in pretty quick. But, there's not much other value out there. Maybe AJ there for Souths with the fullback / centre position. He might go right. And I think Val could possibly get himself back there if the hammer doesn't fire. But the hammer's also one you could look at too, Brent, because at like 411,000, you could easily stash him up into the centres and, just hope that he has a pretty good run for his first 5 or 6 weeks and makes himself a couple of hundred with some good meaties here and there.
No, I agree, mate. I have heard a little bit of mail on Hammer starting in that fullback as well, and there's a few people pretty keen on him. So he could be definitely a good shout at 420k, the fact that you can pick him up in that centre wing. And they start the season with the Dogs, Raiders, Broncos. So, he's probably a bit of a pod to start your year for sure.
And, hey, the one which I've left out too, and I don't mean to overlook him because he's got the meanest name in the game, mate, and it's Meaney. Now, like, they've taken him down to the Storm system. They've also got Coates down there too. So Coates is a bit cheaper, but Meaney at 424. Now, he was playing in a real shit team last year, and they were, pardon me, Doggies fans, but they were rubbish, right? So maybe this year, putting him down there, a little head knock to Pappy, and I think that there's going to be a whole lot of coaches all over Nick Meaney, mate. So that's just one to keep in the back of your mind, boys.
No, good shout. I like it, Ted. I personally am looking at the 2 gun routes, so unless there's a fullback guy like we got the Savage as well, who apparently could get that opportunity. As you mentioned, he might get the update of his duality, but I generally haven't worried too much about some of those cheaper fullbacks. So, yeah, keen to hear what people are doing. Are you going to run the old Teddy Pappy? You got Turbo with a cheapie. Are you doing something different to that with a Ponga and someone else? But yeah, it's going to be pretty important, especially those that do start with Turbo and those that don't. If you do, you've got an easy captain each week, pretty much set and forget captaincy option. And if you don't, you might have to find it a little bit more each week, whether it's Teddy, whether it's Pappy, whether it's, Cleary or someone else. But one thing's for sure with Turbo, you're not having to worry about who that captaincy's on. So.
Oh, yeah, look, that's getting back to the Turbo thing, right? Ultimately, what springboards a lot of people up in this game is the right C choice, right? And I can remember riding last year, Tommy's big scores, Teddy's big scores, and just absolutely loving it, right? So, this is what you've got to consider spending your money. So, me going that, I'd never start Tommy. Maybe with about 30 seconds to go before our first lockout, I'm just pulling my team apart and I'm sticking him in.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. These boys, a couple of these boys, your Clearys, your Turbos, are very expensive. If you want a premium hooker, it's got to give somewhere. So it's going to be interesting. Very much looking forward to seeing people's approach to it, what the strategy is, and how people go about managing their sides. But look, mate, that's probably about it from me. I don't know if you've got any other players you want to mention, even if
look, just sort of quickly, because we moved on from the second rowers without covering lots of our real cheapies, which people are talking Martin at 428. Well, I'm not looking there. I'd like Kane at 413. I think he offers a little bit more value. As I said, the kids up there at the Cowboys offer pretty good value. But the last three, which I will like to talk about. Firstly, it's that Kelma Tuilagi for the Tigers. Well, the Tigers have been riddled with injuries. Not only riddled with injuries, riddled with shame. Just being a Tiger, I'd be riddled with shame being a Tiger too. But maybe you could look at Tuilagi, yes, a cheap one at 253 because there's going to be no more Blore. And the one who I really do like, right, it's that Jiraiya Momosia for the Knights. Now, mate, you know who I'm talking about, Brent. Mm-hmm. He came on last year, played the last handful of games. He's a big kid. And, mate, I think that, him and the Saifidi boys just banging it out up front, they're going to be Newcastle's only salvation is that we might get a bit of go forward because, God help us, the rest of us looking pretty ugly there. So that's me shout out on the cheapies and me breakdown of Newcastle because we're shit.
No, mate, I like it and appreciate the shout out, especially for some of those cheaper blokes because it might be a bit hard this year. We might have to look a bit deeper in those team lists to find some decent ones. So good shout. We'll have to keep an eye out on a couple of those boys. But, mate, that's probably about it from me. I don't know, Bogues, if you had anything else you want to chuck on before we called it there.
No, me. I've been playing Pokemon. I haven't even been paying attention.
Beautiful. Big Ted, mate. Anything you want to shout out or anything, mate? It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Nah, it's been a pleasure, boys. I hope I haven't dropped too many F-bombs or anything
that. Can't drop enough.
Right. And mate, it'd be a pleasure to come back on and chat some more Supercoach at a later date.
It'll be our pleasure, and I'm sure we'll organise something throughout the year with it, probably a few times because I think that was quite seamless. And the people, I'm looking at the comments here, Big Ted, the people are loving it. So would love to have you back, mate. Appreciate your time tonight. I know it's very late over there across the ditch. People don't know where.
Don't worry, mate. Hampo, this is commitment. But hey, look, before I do bugger off, right, just a shout out to all the boys who I said I'd give a shout out to. They know who they are, but it's been a pleasure. Maybe we can have some other guests come on the show later this year and they can put their mugs and their ugly voices on and then we all go from there.
Sounds good, brother. Shout out whoever it is you want to shout out. This is your time. You've put the hards in, so the least we can do.
Shane O'Benny. Yeah, Shane O'Benny. And a shout out to the SC Whisperer too. Because honestly, is he a fucking robot or what? He never sleeps, mate. He's on bloody Kano's hub thing 24 hours a day. And it's like, I'm sure he doesn't sleep, but love you, mate. Love your work. And thanks for having me on, boys. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, brother. And yeah, a shout out as well for all those things. Guys, we'll see you probably next week or the week after. I don't know what we've got planned, but looking forward to it. And yeah, hope everyone has a good night and a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.